Good morning, everyone. My name's Martin Johnston. I work for Highlands Islands Enterprise. For the purposes of today, simply put, I look after what HIE does round about international trade. I thought a very simple agenda for this morning in terms of what do we know, what do we, and particularly what do you, need to do, and then to start to sketch out some of the help that's available for you. So in terms of what do we know, when Trudy started to talk to the panel about putting on an event today on the 1st of March, well, that's great, that's brilliant timing, because by then we'll know what's happening and be able to talk with authority to businesses in the audience about what they should have done and everything. Now, there's a reason why I put a picture up there rather than words, because whatever I'd written at the beginning of this week would have changed fundamentally by the end of this week. And this week alone, we've gone from the Labour Party clarifying their position on a referendum. We've had significant concessions on the existing deal, and as Trudy said, we've now got clarity, if that's the word, on 3 votes towards the middle of March. But at the moment, other than Brexit means Brexit, we're not really very sure at all about the detail of this. So it remains fast-moving and uncertain. The politics of this are particularly hard to read, and that matters because that will have practical consequences for businesses in the audience today and across the United Kingdom. So at the moment, we are assuming that at 11 p.m, 4 weeks today, on Friday the 29th of March, the UK will leave the European Union. Since, well, slightly before Christmas last year, across the Scottish public sector, we took a prudent view that we will assume that we will leave, it will be a hard Brexit, that we will leave the current arrangements for trade, for imports, and we will crash, as it's called, to World Trade Organization detail. So my presentation is on that, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, because I think prudently that's what businesses need to be doing. And in terms of what that might mean in terms of a World Trade Organization scenario, one of the metaphors that I like to give is it's moving from the Premier League to the 4th Division. Yes, we're still playing football, but it's very, very different between those two things. And there's no way really to sweeten that pill. The consequences for business when we go to WTO terms will be much more significant. Sarah did an excellent job just then of explaining some of the procedures, the paperwork, the system, the complexities that will be added to businesses that is not there at the moment on the whole. The Scottish Government have done some economic scenarios that was published just last week. They're projecting a drop in Scottish GDP of round about 7%, a drop in exports of somewhere between 10 to 20%, unemployment that's currently around about 4% across Scotland. That would rise anywhere between 5.5% to 8%, and at that upper level of 8% unemployed, that will be 100,000 people that will lose their jobs as a consequence of us leaving the EU without a deal. And also the anticipation is that Scotland and probably UK will move into recession this year. So it is really serious. And as I said to some of my colleagues, I'm usually in front of businesses talking about the positive opportunities and what you need to do. This is not going to be one of those talks, I'm afraid. There are some silver linings, I will talk about those, but this is very much about this is what businesses need to do and why, in the context that it is very uncertain. Busy slide there, but basically what that says is, so HIE surveys businesses 3 times a year. The most recent one was undertaken over 1,000 businesses across the Highlands and Islands over the month of October, and that data is then gathered in and processed, and that's a 20-minute interview with over 1,000 businesses over October. And what that says, and this mirrors data that's more current from across the UK and across England, is that businesses, understandably, and I'll explain what I mean, are not prepared for Brexit. And understandably, because when you talk to businesses, they say, well, surely the politicians will sort this out. Surely we can't go into a hard Brexit because of all the things that I just said. So a lot of businesses, certainly in terms of October, are not prepared. But that is changing. One of the main things I'm talking about today, and I'm sure you will hear other speakers talk about it, is within Scotland, our main response is a website. So that's a one-to-many tool that we have, and it's prepared for Brexit. And we're, the uptake, the visitation to that, the going through it, the numbers were relatively low up until last month, and we've seen a week-on-week doubling of the number. So businesses are now, I think like all of us are saying, well, 4 weeks today, I really now need to, whether it happens or not, I now need to prepare my business. So we're seeing that. So the Prepare for Brexit website provides step-by-step guides for businesses to go through. It provides you with the ability to go through a checklist, to think about the things that are important to your business, and I'll touch on some of that, and Sarah has already touched on some of those as well. It's sector-specific, because food and drink as a broad sector is different from oil and gas in terms of what a hard Brexit will mean, for example. And it provides links to others that can help you with specific issues. And it also allows you the ability to get in touch with advisors who can give you some human-to-human interaction and ask, or allow you to ask and have your questions answered. And it's kept up to date, so it changes regularly. So just to run through some of the things that my advice to businesses, that I would imagine is the panel's advice to businesses you need to do, is firstly, look at your customers and suppliers. For some businesses, this will be obvious because you're either importing or you're exporting. So understand what will a hard Brexit mean in terms of the procedures, the tariffs for your imports, what will that mean in terms of your cost base, and if you're exporting, similarly, what will that mean in terms of tariffs and regulations? Talk to your customers, talk to your suppliers, understand what's happening there, what their attitude is, understand what's happening across your sector in terms of your competitors. So do your homework, speak to people that are important to your business in terms of your supply chain. And for some businesses, they might be saying, well, I neither import nor export. I'm all right, Jack. Well, are you? Where does your supplies come from? Where does your supplier get their supplies from? Your customer, where do they sell on to? The impact of Brexit will be across the economy of the United Kingdom. And whilst you as a business may not directly be neither importing nor exporting, your suppliers may well be importing and what's going to happen to them, and your customers may well be exporting and what's going to happen to them. So again, it's do your homework, look up and down your supply chains and see what that is. Another key thing that we're recommending is have a look at the tariffs. This is I provide the link here, and these slides will be provided both online and to guests in the room. And have a look at some of the tariffs. I mean, in terms of World Trade Organization tariffs, the average for agriculturally produced goods is 22%. For non-agricultural, it's 2%. So there's a big difference there. But now those are averages. So just to pull out some numbers that may resonate with guests in the room and people online. For beef, it's 59%. For butter, it's 66%. And this is for imports as well as exports. So if you're a baker, one of your major imports, one of your major raw materials is butter, you're going to see a 66% increase in terms of butter. And the UK is not self-sufficient in butter, for example. On average, across seafood for World Trade Organization, the average tariff is 13%. I had a look at this website and pulled out some specifics. So for haddock, it's 7.5% tariff. For cod, it's 18%. For salmon, it's 2%. For lamb, it's not a percentage. It's an amount of €8.5 per kilogram. For textiles, it's 8%. For lithium batteries that may resonate for this region, it's 4.7%. So some of these numbers, some of these additional costs that come on to businesses are significant. And you need to have a look and think about what does that mean for my business? What does it mean for the prices that I've already got negotiated? What will my customers be expecting me to do when these tariffs come on? Now, there are two potentially silver linings in this, if I put on my rose-tinted glasses and look at it. One is that these tariffs apply to imports to the UK, so that will allow businesses the chance to look at import substitution, because overseas competitors, in terms of the UK market, will be facing some of these import duties. And that may mean that you now become much more cost competitive than other suppliers to customers or potential customers in the UK. And the other thing is, looking at what's already happened and what might happen, is the further devaluation of sterling. So in many cases, for many business, for many sectors, the devaluation of sterling for exporting will exceed the increase in tariffs. So it will be possible for businesses to be more competitive post-Brexit than they are pre-Brexit. Now, that said, that's just purely on a cost basis. There are, as Sarah took us through, all the regulation and procedures that businesses will need to understand and be able to deal with, and that adds time, complexity, and most fundamentally, it adds cost. And another point, just to make it obvious, that moving to a hard Brexit is not just about our interaction with Europe. Through our membership of Europe, the UK has something like 40 free trade agreements with 74 countries. All of that goes. So we will not enjoy the recently announced trade deal with Japan, for example. We will be trading on WTO terms with Japan and with 74 countries around the world that we currently have preferential trade agreements in place with through the EU. So what do you need to do? I'm the third person to say it to you, so it must be important. Register for an EORI. Why? Because it's a code, it's a reference that's unique to your business that you absolutely need for just about every single piece of paperwork or digital paperwork for importing or for exporting. If you haven't got that, you can't import and you can't export. And it's really, really important. The other thing you need to look at is in terms of the role of HMRC, and it's to do with the VAT. It's complicated, as VAT is, but simply put, you will now be having to pay VAT on imports. The current rules are, though, that that won't be at the point of entry. You will be allowed to use that as input VAT to your quarterly returns. So that's helpful. HMRC have done that to help businesses with their cash flow. And also, you'll have to, wherever country in the world you're now selling to, and that's every single country in Europe, their VAT arrangements you'll need to build in to your pricing and into your sales and into your paperwork model. And as Sarah said, rules of origin also matter now. So at least 60% of all your input prices need to come from within the UK. Otherwise, you'll have to start paying VAT on those individual components within that. Again, the declarations will now become broader, deeper, much more complicated than businesses have had the enjoyment of in the past. As I mentioned, there are sector-specific aspects with a hard Brexit, and there are many, all the industry bodies have geared up to provide advice and information to their members and to the sector. Much of this is freely available online, and if you're members, of course, you can talk to them. So things like Scotland Food and Drink, the Seafish Authority, the National Farmers Union, and so on and so forth. So where you're in industry, look to your industry body, look online, speak to the reps that you have, and talk to them about Brexit. Understand or help that, allow that to help your understanding of what it means for your business and your sector. A key aspect, and for the first few years since the referendum, this has been the number one issue that business have presented, is about workforce, EU nationals, and what's going to happen to my existing workforce, and what will happen in terms of my ability to draw on a workforce from across Europe. Well, that's one of the fundamental aspects of Brexit, and is currently proposed. Then the ability for you as a business to attract talent in from overseas will be much reduced. The current proposals are, these are not agreed, is that there will be certain restrictions on low-level skills and lighter restrictions on high-level skills. And crudely put, the arbiter is that is whether someone earns more than 30,000, that's high-level skills, and relatively well, relatively speaking, straightforward, and if they earn less than 30,000, much harder to get them in. In the context of our economy, in terms of the context of Scotland, of the Highlands and Islands, of Caithness, 30,000 is a decent wage, and for many businesses, many of your employees will be less than 30,000. So this change will fundamentally restrict your ability to draw on a workforce. And for many businesses across the region, across Scotland, they have enjoyed a workforce from Europe, and the UK government have put in place some rules and some procedures around about how people who are from Europe and are settled and working with their families in the United Kingdom can stay. So again, as an employer, the advice is talk to your workforce, talk to people that are not from the United Kingdom, make sure that you as the employer and they as the employee are aware of these rules and procedures, and make sure that you're aware of the help that's available to you and to them to look at the systems and procedure. And transport, well, Sarah kind of talked on it in terms of think about how you get your goods in and think about how you get your goods out. Who's doing that? Are they a freight forwarder? Have they got an EORI number? Have they got AEO status? If not, what are their plans for that? So again, talk to one of your major suppliers in terms of transport so that you understand that they've understood things and have addressed that appropriately. And the key thing there, the double exclamation, there's a heck of a lot of technical paperwork that now will be associated with importing and exporting. And Sarah took us through quite a lot of that. So a few slides just to rattle through. What help is available? Well, Trudy and the team, Sarah and the team, the Chambers of Commerce within Scotland and the British Chamber of Commerce are an excellent source of advice and information and help. So one of the things is look at the websites, speak to Trudy and the team, speak to Sarah and the team, and you're drawing on a vast pool of knowledge and expertise to help you human to human as well as that's available digitally. The Institute of Export, a fantastic website. There's free advice there. There's also paid for advice there. These are sort of the recognised experts, the professionals when it comes to exporting. If you haven't, we, HIE, have a number of webinars by the Institute of Export on our website. The links will be on everybody else's website. Go listen to that webinar. It's more eloquent than what I'm doing in terms of talking to you about what the implications of a hard Brexit are. The UK government have a lot of information. Trudy talked about their technical notes. So again, there are different levels that you can go into in terms of understanding. But if you want to dive deep on this stuff, the deep stuff is there. If you want just a summary of it, there's a summary of it that's there. So look at the UK government website. And the one that I'm really recommending to Scottish-based businesses is go look at the Prepare for Scotland website. As I mentioned at the beginning of my slide, there are walkthroughs, there are talking heads, there are checklists, there are links, and it also allows you to engage with humans. And this simple model just takes you through. So the website allows you to do a self-assessment. That starts to identify for you things that you can get on with now by yourself. That's not rocket science. You can do that. There are things that are perhaps more technical or more uncertain. It allows you to come through to talk to someone about that. And it takes you into a system. A key point is that there's a number of organisations on this panel. There is no wrong door. Speak to me and it's about skills. I'll happily put you in touch with Stephen and help you do that. If it's something that the Chamber can do, I'll happily put you in touch with Sarah. If you speak to Sarah and it's something that HIE or SDI or whoever else can do that. Just speak to any one of us. We're here as a team. I may not be particularly there at that moment in time be able to help you, but I can reach out to Sarah, I can reach out to Stephen, I can reach out to many colleagues to help you. So there's no wrong door. So don't wonder who to speak to any of us. Then pretty much the last slide from me. So there is advice to help businesses with their international trade strategy and plan. given that the assumption is, and it's an assumption, that we're looking at a hard Brexit in 4 weeks today, I think every business should be looking at what's my strategy, what are the markets, what are the opportunities, what are the threats, what do I need to do about that? And there is advice there to help businesses look at that. And also, if there's technical questions that you have round about doing international trade, whether that's importing or exporting, then there's the ability to have those technical questions answered. Within Scotland, the Scottish Government have made available through Scottish Development International a Prepare for Brexit as a consultancy grant that's 100% funded, up to £4,000, and that enables you to draw on a third-party technical specialist to help you prepare for Brexit. That's an advice-led piece of funding support, by which I mean that we would expect the business to be able to talk about its strategy and its plan. If you can't, then the advisors that are around help businesses will engage with you first, and then you access and you put into context what the technical support is you're looking for. These other last two bullet points are from the UK government and through the HMRC, because, as Sarah was talking to us about, of changes in procedures and increasing in complexity of electronic forms. There is both training to staff, funding available to train your staff, and also to buy in the hardware and the software. So there are training grants available from HMRC, and there are also IT grants available from HMRC. So I would draw your attention to that. Again, there's details of that on the Prepare for Brexit website and through other websites. So that is my slides. Many thanks for your time and attention. I am aware that what we're talking about here is not positive and cheery, but I think we'd rather be honest with businesses about what we think it is that you need to be doing than find we're into April and businesses said, well, if only I'd known. So thank you.